Start a minute early. Is that okay? All right, I'm just going to start. Awesome. Launch your design system in a hyperdrive with Starshot's Experience Builder. So there's been a lot of Experience Builder talks, a lot of design system talks, a lot of Starshot talks. So I've got like all the buzzwords in here. Yeah, bingo. Yeah, that would be a good game. All right, some credits. We're doing some Starshot artwork and Drupal branding. Mentioned Civic Theme, which is a design system, and Salsa. So hi, I'm Kristen. For those of you that were at the pre-Dries note. Oh, thank you. Yeah, is that better? I don't want to scream at people, but yeah, want to make sure people can hear me. So those of you that were at the before Dries note, hopefully I didn't make you cry. I did make some people cry, so, you know, but it was a good cry, I think. I do a lot of things. I have many hats. I actually work at multiple companies. I'm here for Salsa, and I'm their open source contribution lead. I do a bunch of Starshot things. I'm on the advisory council. I was the Starshot demo design system lead. And now we're doing this migration thing, and I'm working on that, just starting with Suchi back at Salsa. Been doing Drupal for a long time. So feel free to connect on LinkedIn or email me. Salsa has been around for 21 years, about the same time I've been in the Drupal world, and it's based out of Australia, so you might not have heard of it if you're mostly US folks. They focus primarily on government, and they've been doing design system work for a long time, including the civic design system, and have supported work, for these different Starshot initiatives. I want to do a special thank you. So we did a lot of scrambling so we did do the demo design system that has been part of the demos for Barcelona and Singapore, and then we did a bunch of scrambling the last few weeks to get some other nice things in there, like the header and the footer and some social media stuff and fun stuff. So I did want to shout out to some of the people that were kind of scrambling behind the scenes in the last couple of weeks or so. I'm not going to name all the names. I will do a special shout out to my son, who's Aaron, and he helped with stitching together the video. And also for Lionel, who did a lot of interesting stuff with styling of social media. All right, so we're going to talk a bit about Experience Builder, a bit about design systems, a bit about SDC, and some tips and thoughts that you should think about when you're trying to marry these things together, and a little bit about next steps. All right, so Experience Builder. Who has not heard about Experience Builder? Is anyone here not? Okay, I would think so. Cool. So I'm actually going to start with the video. We'll see how this goes. It did seem to work. And this is live. This is not live. I did create all of these videos with Experience Builder and the demo design system a few days ago. I did do them in snippets because, I didn't want to like do it in one long take. And then my son stitched them together and sped it up, so it's a little shorter. But I am going to run this because I think getting an idea of how you would build a whole page with Experience Builder now, it's going to get easier, but right now, just to get a flavor of that. So let's see how this works. Okay, so this is building a header kind of from scratch. You decide kind of what you want in the header, added a button, menu. Then you could have some components like a hero that are maybe a little more styled, and then you fill in the gaps. Here's a very free-form section where we're putting some headings, more of a very structured testimonial. Decide that we want to put, some columns with some cards, and maybe I want 3 cards or I want 4 cards, and then I can change the text for each one of those things. And I am working around a few little bugs. So if you see me build something in the middle of the page and kind of bring it down, I'm working around some drag and drop issues that are getting fixed right now. But here's another case study component where, it has some structure. Maybe I can be able to change the background color. I can change the image, but it has sort of a free form area where I can go and put any kind of component I would like. This is a more of a rigid thing where I already had a pre-built component, which was just all the contributors, was actually just an image. This one's fun. This just came in last week, which was having some fun styling around the slots in the middle, having some options so that you can kind of toggle and background colors. Throwing in some, so it's got some structured stuff with the title and a slot where you can throw in text and button and style them and move things around. And I'm not expecting to follow all this. I just want you to get a feel kind of what you can do. This last couple, it's more for the footer. I'm kind of building a flexible, like split background color, and I'm going to throw, in this case, the social media icons, and that was built by Lionel in the last week. And then, I'm just duplicating and then changing which social media icons I'm using for that. And then on the other side, I want to make sure I have like your standard footer where, there's some additional links that I want people to be able to use. I'm grabbing those from the Drupal menu system and dropping them into place. And then I'll do one more, like sometimes people have multiple footer areas, and I'm going to do another one. In this case, I'm just going to drop some blocks that are coming from the block system and just aligning them and dropping that, and eventually drop it at the bottom. So that gives you guys an idea of kind of building the page. Now I'm like using some of the features. You can make sections, which are just like parts of the page where you want to be able to reuse them later. The name section's probably going to change. The other thing you can do is you can move things into global regions. So these are theme regions. So in this case, I'm just moving stuff into the header and the footer region. And at the end of the day, I have a page. And I'm using the components and all the different styling options and things to make something that's, pretty cool. So I know that was fast, and that was intentional, to be fast and not, get into too much of the nitty-gritty of each individual thing. But I am going to pause just for a second and just, does anyone have, we're going to talk about bits and pieces of this, but any just general questions, seeing that, like, is that scaring you? Is that, or you have a comment or a question? So I'm going to open it up first just to, yeah, go ahead.
Where did those components come from?
Yeah, so those components there are from the demo design system, and that is an initiative that I led in order to have something to demo in DrupalCon Barcelona last year. And the designs themselves actually came from the Drupal brand. They did this rebranding, so we were trying to really match that branding that they had there and make a page that felt pretty real. Yeah. Any other? Good question. Yeah. Another question? Oh, okay. So the question is, whenever I see the demo, I see the desktop view. How does it handle responsive? That's a very good question. I actually have it open. I don't know if it's, we'll see if it will reload. It might not. I don't have Docker. I closed my Docker. We'll see. All right. I'll reload my Docker. I'll see if I can bring up a live demo of that one, because I still do have that, and might be able to show you. But the idea is, yeah, you would make your components, just like any theming, you would make sure that you're making your components responsive and have all the media queries and, breakpoints and everything so that, it's rendering correctly on desktop, on tablet, on mobile. Yeah, we'll see if we'll actually get that up and running or not. I probably have to do DDev and, okay. We'll see at the end. I might be able to show you in a little bit. But yeah, that's a really good question. It's actually hidden in the video. It's behind like the settings. If I were to scroll over, we could have seen like what it looked like in the mobile view. Any other questions before we move on? Yeah.
Just to follow up, does the tool itself work well on smaller screens?
That's a very good question. So the question is, does the Experience Builder tool itself work well on smaller screens? I would say not great, because then, you don't have a lot of real estate to work with, and you got sidebars on both sides, and then, yeah, so it'd be, ideally, you'd have, at least a decent size workspace. I wouldn't want to, I don't even know if work on a phone, but yeah, definitely you want a little bit of, it's kind of like working in Figma or something, like you want a little bit of breathing room on the screen. All right, any other questions for now? Oh, there's one in the back. Yeah. 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 And if we have a chance at the end, if someone reminds me at the end, I'll try to, I have to do DDev start and get that up and running. All right. Keep going? All right, cool. So let's go back in here. Cool. So like I said, there are a lot of sessions. So we're last session of the last session day at DrupalCon, but there were at least 5 other sessions that I found in the schedule that mentioned Experience Builder. So here are all the ones that I found. Maybe there's others. So when the videos come out, if you didn't see some of these, then you can learn more there. Hopefully everybody kind of understands the Starshot vision. We're trying to make things easy for the non-technical person and just give them tools to build amazing things without being on the command line or having to do a lot of head scratching. And Experience Builder, provides this sort of WYSIWYG, drag and drop sort of interface that has become more common in the last few years, for a while. And so we're trying to go head to head first, actually have some of the tools that you do have in things like Wix and Weebly and Squarespace and all that, but really take it beyond that, because Drupal's amazing at like structured data and all of the integrations, and we do amazing things, and so we can't just do what they're doing, right? We need to integrate it with all of the power of Drupal as well. So that's really the value add that we're going to provide. And this is a slide that was shown, I think, back, maybe this was in Barcelona, but so who here has used Layout Builder before? Oh, a large number, maybe half the room. And paragraphs? Oh, even more, I think. Yeah, maybe 3/4 of the room. And for head count, I don't know, maybe there's 80 people in here, I'm not really sure. So the idea is, looking at the tools that people are using and try to find the best of all the things that people like to use and bring them in and make them easier so that, you just have everything at your fingertips. So right now, what can you add when you're in Experience Builder? You can add SDCs, and we're going to talk more about SDCs. Single directory components. You can add blocks. So if in the video, I added content blocks, I added menu blocks. So anything that's registered as a block in the system, you can go and drag it in, which is great. And then if you were at the Experience Builder demo by Lori, or I guess also by Ballant, they were doing the code component. So if you had built like a Tailwind JavaScript design system, or you want to build that through the UI, you can do that as well. I'm not going to talk about those. Those are actually pretty well covered in those other talks. You can do sections, which I alluded to, where you can right-click on an area of the screen and say, I want to save this whole thing because I want to reuse it later. The name sections probably will be changed because there was some confusion. So a lot of this stuff also goes through like usability testing and user testing to make sure that we're using the right terminology that people understand and we don't confuse them. All right, so who here has tried Drupal CMS? All right, maybe a dozen or so people. How about Experience Builder? I'm guessing that number's less. Yeah, maybe 5-ish. Yeah, I see it. All right, cool. Has anyone contributed to Starshot in any way? Code, oh, we got Emma here. Oh, okay, so maybe 5-ish. Cool. So who's excited about all this stuff? Is this fun? Is this cool? All right, I got most of the hands up, and the other ones are probably just like checking their email. All right, cool, no problem. Now we're gonna talk a little bit about design systems. That's Experience Builder. Who here has worked, not necessarily created a design system, but worked or knows what a design system is? Okay, a lot of people, maybe half of the rooms, roughly. How about, have you worked with one? Actually used it in your sites? Yeah, about the same number of people, probably the same people. How about actually creating, being part of the creation process, whether it's designing, doing the front end dev for it? Okay, so maybe 10, 15 people. Who's a designer? Do we have any designers in the room? Okay, we've got maybe 5-ish. Who's a front-end developer, themer? All right, so a bit more, maybe 20-ish. How about full-stack developer, back-end developer? Oh, okay, we got a lot of the room. Who does something else? Who's not any of those things? Is there anyone? Okay, what do you do? I put you on the spot. Product stuff. Okay, awesome. Okay, so what brings you here? You're just curious?
We're planning to roll out design system and
Oh, okay.
editing experience along these lines.
Awesome. Okay, so and I feel like I've seen you before. What's your name? Eric. Yeah, so Eric is rolling out design systems. He's product person, product manager, or so yeah. Welcome all. We do very developer heavy in the room, but we welcome everybody. Cool. And then also DrupalCon loves design systems. So yeah, there's not as many as the Experience Builder, but there are quite a few. The Drupal CMS design, default design system was talked about yesterday. That's with Media Current. And let's see, design systems a Drupal way. That was Pierre. I don't know if Pierre's in the room, but he leads the UI suite, UI patterns project, and they're doing a lot of stuff with single directory components, and he's also the maintainer of that in Drupal core. So there's a lot of cool stuff happening. All right. So generally speaking, it seemed like a good number of people are familiar with design systems, worked with them, or have heard about them. But I mean, the whole point is to have, consistency across your brand. You could have a design system and then use that not just in your website, you can use it for your applications and for other assets, right? So you want that, consistency across all of your products, and it helps you be more efficient when you're trying to build new things, new pages, or, new features, and scale across all of that. And then it also can help with collaboration and kind of speaking the same language between the designer and the UX folks and the developers, and they're all kind of, trying to work together to make this happen. All right, who here has a favorite design system? Shout it out. Crickets. Sorry? Oh, gov.uk. Yes, excellent. That was from Emma. Yep. Any others?
The BBC one?
The US one? US.
The BBC.
Oh, BBC.
BBC has.
Oh, cool. BBC has a design system. Okay, well, there's a lot of companies that have design systems that are, have their brand. Any other shout outs? No? All right, no problem. I'm not going to go over all that. There's a lot of words on this page, but just design systems actually predate the internet. I mean, it's not, having consistency in magazines, and, you could have a bunch of, products, and you want to brand it and have all of your assets be all with the same consistent branding. But as far as with the digital design systems, it's something that's been going on for, a few decades. And it's really much more mature. There's a lot better tooling, and it's really matured just in the last decade. So some design systems that people may have heard of are Material Design by Google, Carbon, the USWDS. Had some conversations last night at the Acquia party with Stephen about the future of that, given some funding of government agencies these days. So I don't know, little question mark on that one. Ant is another one. So, in the, mid 2010s, some of these, very notable design systems came out. Now, in the Drupal system, I mentioned UI Suite. There are a whole bunch of UI Suite design systems that use SDCs and that work with, they definitely work with Drupal and Drupal 11. I don't know how much testing has yet been done with Experience Builder. So just a caveat, like these work with Drupal doesn't necessarily mean it works with Experience Builder, because that's been a moving target, and so, you know, hasn't really been pinned down really well. Starshot Demo Design System was explicitly designed to work with Experience Builder because that was our whole point, was to be able to let them use it for testing and for demoing. Civic Theme, so Starshot Demo Design System is actually a sub-theme of Civic Theme, and the Civic Theme components, they're also getting a SDC, basically a rewrite now, so that those will be working. So we didn't need a lot of those components. We needed some custom bespoke things for the demo design system, so that's happening. And then there's the default design system in Drupal CMS that they're, I don't think they're quite to code yet, or maybe they're working in Storybook at this point. Okay, so these were the component, you know, some of the components you saw in that video that I did. And so a digital design system, a web design system, you know, you're going to have all of these components. And usually the workflow is such that you have the designer that's going to go and make the design. Figma is often the designer's tool of choice. Is anyone here who's a designer work with something other than Figma? No. Okay. So yeah, it's been pretty standard. You know, they're going to make, you know, they're going to make the design and use that tool or something similar, and then it often goes off to another step. And so a lot of cases you don't necessarily go straight from Figma straight into Drupal, for example. You would do something like Storybook, where you can codify all those components, and that's where your front-end developer would work. And it's, you know, you can use different types of technology in order to make those components. But in this case, you know, we'll be doing, you know, Twig and CSS and JavaScript and that kind of stuff. So, you know, these two examples came from Civic Theme, but this is a pretty standard process for most design systems. Okay, so let's jump to SDC a little bit. And yeah, there's SDC talks as well. I didn't make it to 2 of those. I made it to this one, though, so that's good. Barely. Okay, so web components in general, and I'm not talking about the web component, like technical spec, but is basically you got HTML and CSS and sometimes JavaScript in order to, you know, render something in the page. So you might have heroes, cards, buttons, you know, like we saw the testimonials, all of those things, those little things. Now, whether you call the whole thing a component or not, there's, you know, people get hung up on terms, but generally speaking, I'm just calling each one of those sort of, you know, things as a component, because that's kind of how that they're reflected in the Experience Builder UI. Now, a single directory component is a Drupal thing, which is a reflection of what a component is, but within Drupal. So it's the part that makes it Drupal is that we have a metadata file. So in this case, this is a button component. This is an example coming from Civic Theme. It has some, you know, light theme, dark theme, or different styling options, as you see with the primary, secondary. And you have a YAML file, which is the metadata, a Twig file, which is the markup, the CSS, and the JavaScript. Not all components are going to have JavaScript, and you don't even necessarily have to have CSS in some cases, depending on your component. Like a good example of that might be a skip link. You don't need any CSS for that, but it's an accessibility thing that could be coded as a component and then added to the template. All right, so how about people in the crowd? Who had heard about SDCs before? Single director, oh, wow, okay, good chunk of the team. I mean, team, go team. About like 3/4 of the room, I would say, at least. A lot of developers in the house. Who has actually worked with SDCs? I'm guessing that's gonna go down. Okay, maybe 15 or so, that's pretty good. And then, so that's working with it. Have you created them yourself, like actually created them? Okay, it's actually looks like a pretty large overlap between the two. Awesome. Okay, so we talked about this. I'm just going to do a time check. Oh, it's 1:30 in the afternoon. I'm on Pacific time. I think I'm okay. All right, so the metadata file looks something like this. We've got our button, and you have machine name, right? That's the name of the file. In our case, lowercase button would be the name, but you have a human readable name as well, uppercase button in this case. Then you have a bunch of statuses that you can provide. In the demo design system, all of the components that we want to show up in Experience Builder, for now we just called them all experimental because we were just constantly changing things and playing around. And then there are a number of components in there, probably 60-ish components that are in the demo design system. They're actually marked to obsolete, which means they don't show up. And that's because they're in various stages of, some of them work in Experience Builder, some of them don't, but they weren't ones that we needed to use in the demos. And then you say if any of the props, and we'll go over that in a minute, are required. You have a list of props and slots, which we'll go over in a minute. And then you can have, unlimited amount of stuff that you're providing in the UI, but I, discourage that. We'll talk about that later. So the main thing about the components, the SDCs, are props and slots. Those are the two major things. So props are very structured. Think of it as like fields. It's data on your component that you want. Now, it could be something that you actually want to visibly see on the page, or it could be something that tells you maybe how you want to style the thing on the page. And there could be other things as well, but like maybe some animation or something like that, or picking an image or something. So there are different types of props you can have: Boolean, integer, object, string. I'll have some other examples in a bit. And if you're using URLs, you would tell it it's a URI, so it knows that it can check the URL to make sure it's valid. There's something in enum where you can say, okay, I'm only going to allow the user to choose from these particular options, so that they can't just put in free-form text and do whatever they want. And something called examples, which I don't know if that's the best name, but that's what it's called. And all that means is that's kind of like a placeholder. So, when you have like form fields and stuff and you have a placeholder, you kind of think about it like that. It's just sort of a default that goes in there. There's a default as well, but I didn't stick it in there because I didn't want to confuse people with default and examples and all that. And yeah, you can specify whether something's a text area, so like, a box of text, or an image, and there's an example of an image in a bit. But as far as like things that will be coming that aren't in there just yet, there are issues for these, are arrays. Like, so if you had so I have icon here as an example prop. If you wanted to be able to specify that the user could choose multiple icons for some reason, we will be able to support arrays at some point. So that you could do that. And the other thing is CK Editor. Right now, we're not supporting that, but there is an issue to make that happen. I'm going to stop for a moment just because I have done a lot. I want to just check and see if anyone has any questions and kind of what we've already talked about. Yeah, go ahead.
Will it be possible to extend these with modules to create our own prop types?
Oh, that's a very good question. So the question is, could we use our own modules to create different prop types? Not that I'm aware of right now. It is an interesting idea. They're very, well, could you? Maybe in principle you could, because there is, well, I don't know, at least for the images. I don't know about prop types. I feel like that's probably too locked down because they have a metadata schema that they're pulling from. I'm not sure I'd be able to mix and mingle them. Yeah, you want to have follow-up?
So
Yeah.
I'll follow up then. What if I wanted to supply the values for an enum from some other source than the
Oh, that's and actually, yeah, that's a really good use case too. So the question was, if I had this enum and I wanted to pull the data out of some other list or whatever, maybe the database or some other file or something, to be able to use that instead. I don't believe it's supported right now. I haven't seen that. But a really good example of that is this icon. So I only have 3 things showing here in this icon list. We literally had this many icons, and we had to I'm showing like a foot of icons. You had to copy paste it because it showed up in several different components. And it would have been excellent if we could have just said, hey, go grab them from this file or something. Here's the list, and just.
Exactly the use case of it.
Yeah. So I don't believe we can do that, but that would be an excellent feature request for sure. All right. Any other? I saw some other hands. Go ahead.
Just to confirm, you mentioned that the properties can be content or essentially configuration for the SDC. Because I see you have things like
Yeah.
the type, the icon,
Yeah.
and then allow HTML, which is really like how to configure it when you're.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so this is actually a pretty good example of different ways you might, different types of ways you might use props. So the first one we have is type. And that's a primary, secondary, tertiary options, meaning that the style of the button is going to change depending on the option you choose. The second one is icon, and that's actually an optional one. So if you wanted the icon to show on the button, you could choose one, but if you didn't, you could leave it empty. So that is also a visual, but sort of an optional visual. And then the allow HTML was, especially because right now we're not handling the CK editor, so it was kind of like, okay, do we want them to be able to type in some markup or not? And so it's a little bit of a workaround. But yeah, so there's different ways that you're going to want to use props depending on just kind of how configurable you want your component to be. All right, I think there was some more hands. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so is there like a way to do like entity reference builds within the props now? Like if I wanted like reference a node or a taxonomy term or something, or is there a different way that you can kind of work with it?
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question. So can you use like entity references or whatever in the props? And yes, not right now, and not here. You would actually do it in the UI where, say you're editing, your content editor is like, oh, I want to provide the title of this card, but I actually want it to pull from the node itself. That's when they're going to be able to do that, and that's still being worked on. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, cool. Okay, and then slots. So props, very structured. Think of them as fields. It's data. It's we know exactly what we want, but they can have sort of different sort of use cases. Slots are like, here's a slot. Have fun. Go put whatever you want in there. So you basically can just drag other components into there. And so the downs, great, flexible, cool, but, kitchen sink, can I just throw whatever and make the most ugly page ever possible, the Frankenstein page by throwing everything in there? Yeah, you can. So the thing about this, which is going to help, so something that's being worked on that will help this in the future is being able to restrict what goes into the slot. So that is something that will happen in the coming months. So that way, at least whoever's in charge of the design system can say, you know what, I don't want you to put anything here, but I will let you put maybe an image, maybe an icon, or you have certain options that you're allowing to put in there, and then otherwise, no, you need to think about your life choices. So yeah, that will, I've been wanting that feature for some time. So a little bit more of like props versus slots, and I think this is just kind of a summary of what we've already talked about. If you have very structured data, so this example at the bottom is for an image. You'll see that actually this has a schema reference that's off to a specific schema, so that we know that we have a source and we have alt text, and I don't remember if this one has width and height, but it has a structured thing in the schema, and it's going to pull from that. This is one where I think in principle You could probably make your own schema, because that's basically what Experience Builder does, is they have their own schema. I toyed with the idea of maybe us playing with that, but we didn't really have time. So it'd be interesting if someone does want to play with that, to go ahead and try making your own schema, make your own object, and see if you can pull it in and have the things. Yeah, that would be kind of fun. But yeah, just think about your end user. Like, does it make sense to have, this kind of free-for-all kind of slot? Sometimes it does. Or do you have predefined information? So I'm going to time check. All right, we're good. I'm going to give you an example of using props versus slots and 3 different options. Of course, it's probably any kind of option you want. But so option 1, I'm using all props. So this is a call-out component coming from Civic Theme in this case. This is what it looks like in Storybook. This is what the design looks like. So Figma Storybook, this is what it looks like. It's just kind of got this, styling on the side, this sort of bar, some sort of background color, a title, some text, and a couple links. And that's kind of what we're going for. So option 1 would be, I'm going to do all of this with props. I do not want my users to deviate and put an image or other things in there. I'm very strict, and this is what I want. This is all I want them to use it for. For whatever reason, that could be a very valid use case that you really want them to use what you have. So we have the title, which is call out title from knob. We've got the text, which is, some lorem ipsum. And then we've got link 1 and link 2. But for link 1 and link 2, we need the text on the link and we need the URL. So we actually need both of those. Then we have option 2, which we're like, well, I like the little sidebar and the background thing, and sure, some title, but you know what? I'm just going to let them put whatever they want. Maybe they don't want to do the text and the buttons or something, but I kind of like the styling, so I'm going to let them have some flexibility. Actually, a lot of flexibility, because I'm just going to have the title. And then option 3 is sort of a mixture, where you have some slots and some props, and you're sort of intermixing them and giving them some options. So I'll go over it in a little more detail. So props only, here's an example. This is the same exact component, but dark theme, light theme. And we've got the title, we've got the text, and we've got the 2 links. And like I mentioned, for link 1, link 2, we have to specify both the text on it and then also the link it's going to. And those are all props. Everything in red, all the red circled area is a prop. Option 2, we've got, the one big slot to I don't know what you want to do. Go for it. It's still going to have the little sidebar and, stuff, but I don't know what you want to do, so go for it. So these are, using the same component, but the first one, I tried to make it look like what the design looked like, right? So if we go back, right, I was going for this top one. Could I make it look like that? Yeah, pretty close. I'm using a button that has a slightly different styling, because this, why not? And then for the second one, I'm like, okay, but I want to do some other stuff. So then I threw in a 4-column container and some cards and some icons, and I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna, and maybe you want them to have that kind of flexibility. So the red one in this case is just a title, and that one's a prop, and then the purple is just your, go for it zone. And then option 3 was the combo. I'm going to have some that are props and some that are slots. Our red, so our title, our description, and our links are still props in this case. They're all optional. I think they were all optional. Normally you would have some things probably be required, but depends on your how you want to use the component. And then the purple ones are the ones where I was throwing in stuff into slots. So I'm going to stop there and just see if anyone has any questions, because this is actually a very important thing, a very important decision when you're designing your components, to try to figure out what are you exposing to your content editors. And it's, you're going to need to think about it. You're going to need to talk to people. You're going to, it's not like a one size fits all, like, oh, only use props or only use slots, or, like, it's not you just need to be thinking about it, and each component's going to have its own use cases, and, one might be more rigid and one might be more flexible. So you just need to kind of, gauge what makes sense for your users. So any questions? Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the slots are in Experience Builder and allow you to add additional components too. I might go back to that video and maybe get to a spot where I can show you where I'm dragging in something into a slot. Yeah. Yeah, another question. Sorry, say again? Oh, can you extend a component? There are overrides. I haven't tested those. My understanding, and I could be wrong, my understanding is you have to do an override in a module, or at least that's what I read at some point. So I'll have to follow up on that one. But in principle, you're supposed to be able to override. I don't know exactly what that means because I haven't played with it yet. Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
For example, we have one component has props and slots, and we need another component where we can keep those props, but the slots we can change.
Kind of like combine two components into one, or kind of like object-oriented development is kind of what you're thinking. You're doing some inheritance scheme, and yeah, I like what you're thinking. I come from a Java background back in the day, so yeah, I do like it. It has something that crossed my mind. Yeah, again, I'm not sure about the overrides. Like, I'm not sure exactly what that means. I think what it meant by overrides is you're basically just saying, I don't want to use yours, use mine instead. That's my understanding of overrides. If someone knows more about overrides or wants to Google it real quick, happy to be corrected. But yeah, no, I know what you're saying. It's like, oh, could I, just add, like, your interface component has a few things, and then you want to add on, you add your new one, and it has those and some other stuff. Yeah. I don't think so, but I will try to remember to look at that one. All right, another question. Okay, so the question is, can you use theme preprocessors to affect the props? I don't believe so. I haven't heard of that. Theme preprocessors, the props. I don't think so. Because the theme preprocessors are really, so these are components. These are, STCs that are registered through the component system. They're not really registered through the theme. I mean, you can have components that are in modules as well, STC components, in modules and in themes. So I don't think you can. Yeah, no. It's a good question. I just don't think you can, because the fact that you can use components within a module, or I think it's a little bit. It's not really carrying the fact that it is in a theme. It just happens to be part of the theme, and then you can pull them in. Yeah, no, it's a good question. You had a question?
In another talk, he was talking about how you could alter the output.
Alter the output. So was this Ballant, or?
I think so.
Okay, yeah. I
Saying, like,
missed his talk because I was in the AI talk. Yeah.
you could have the prop, and then you could have, and I think this may be the overrides.
Okay.
You could, basically pre-process it. You could wrap it in something.
Okay, so you can alter it in the overrides. Okay, awesome. All right, I'm glad you got.
I don't remember exactly how, but he was talking
No
about
worries.
the
You can. I don't know exactly how, but we know people that know exactly how. So, all right. Welcome to DrupalCon, the collective brain. All right. Any other questions? Okay. Time check. No, doing okay. I know everybody's anxious to go home, or go to the parties. Really, let's be real. Okay, so a few tips, and I think I've sprinkled some of this along the way, but obviously focus on user experience. And that's all about what you're hearing with Starshot, right? Drupal CMS. Focus on the user, survey them, have them test things, ask them questions. It's all about them. Whoever's going to be using the components, that's who you want to be talking to. I'm a nerd, I'm a dev, like, just because it's intuitive to me doesn't mean it's going to be intuitive to, someone else that's going to be using this tool. And along those lines, good component names. Naming is super hard, right? Off by one errors, naming, and all that fun stuff. So like the sections thing, they added that in. They thought it made sense, and then they did user testing, and people were like, what is the sections thing, right? So making sure that you're trying to name things in a consistent and clear way for your users. Combining similar components when it makes sense, right? If it's similar enough, you don't want to give them two cards that are like, those are kind of the same. I mean, there's one extra prop, or there's maybe I add a slot so that it has a little more flexibility, but try to think about reusability when possible. So limit options, limit components within reason. You also want to provide flexibility when it makes sense, but not overwhelm the user. Adding engaging placeholders, so that's sort of that examples data. The other thing, I think it's on the next slide, so I'll hold off on that one. Leveraging slots carefully, we talked about that. And then you can add all those fun styling options. It was really cool to see when Lionel added this way where we could have, basically, there's a container, but the inner slot, he had these little fun, borders and colors on the outside that you could, toggle between it. And it's just, those little things can make your design really look a lot different, right? Because then it doesn't feel like every sort of page is the same. It gives the editor some sort of freedom to, personalize the different pages. So it's not like, it's another Drupal site, right? All right. And then ideally, you'd probably also want to provide some tools for the more advanced users. So these containers that have the options of changing padding and that kind of stuff. And now this stuff is evolving. There may be more baked-in tools as we do more user testing that are, part of Experience Builder that you don't necessarily have to provide yourself. It's a little, we'll see where we get to with the whole Drupal CMS design system and all that. But right now, if you were to use the demo design system, there's containers, like you can do the change it 4 columns, 3 columns, whatever. Or there's like a generic container you can throw stuff in and style it with the background and all that. And then if you have more advanced users and they need to set stuff up for your less advanced users, then they can use those sections. So they can make something that, is a whole part of the page, and then say, save that as a section. And then when the other the editor comes in and they're like, oh, cool, I'm going to drag that over, and boom, I'm using it. And I didn't have to worry about the containers and the columns and the cards, and it's just all ready for me to go and edit. And then for the developers, just obviously good machine names, please, as sort of a normal thing for being developer friendly. But one thing that actually threw me, I don't do theming so much anymore. I used to back in the day, but more of a back-end developer now, is Gabor a few weeks ago, he's like, oh, well, we want to do the header footer because we want to show off the global regions. And he's like, normally with themes, you'll have quite a few regions. Like you might have multiple header regions, like split out, like, 1, 2, 3, and all of that. And that was the case with Civic Theme, which we were using as the base theme. And he's like, no, I just want one header region and one footer region. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? He's like, well, because we're gonna design the header and the footer in Experience Builder, and then we're gonna just move it into the region. And I'm like, okay, all right. So I had, it took me a moment to like wrap my head around that, because that was just like hot off the presses, and we were all scrambling for DrupalCon, and I'm like, okay. So we reduced the number of regions down from 15 to 5 or something, and but that is something that you're gonna have to think through. This is a kind of a new paradigm if you're going with the Experience Builder. And the other thing is that I used the default content module and recipes in order to be able to create, so you could create a page, for example, or those menus that I was dragging in, like the little footer menus and the header menus that was in the video. Those were all created on my local. I exported it as default content. I stuck it in the theme in a directory, and then in my README, in my install instructions, I said, run this if you want to get the default content in. Got menus out of the box, we got some content blocks out of the box, and we actually got a whole experience builder page out of the box so that people, when they install it, they can play around with it and say, okay, cool, let's see what I got, and they can go and delete the stuff, right? It's Drupal. It's not going to break anything. It's not a distro. It's just a starting point to play around with. So that's definitely cool. And what's coming up? So some of this stuff has already been previewed. So I made these slides a few weeks ago. The JavaScript components and all that has been demoed, and the code editor and all that, so that's all cool. We talked about the slot restrictions, like trying to lock down like what you can actually put into a slot. Content type templates, so if you have a content type and you want some fixed areas where you're like, I always want my title here, I always want my, taxonomy term or whatever, my little blurb, maybe it's styled in a certain way, but I want that there. And then I have a free-for-all area, a big slot area where I can just kind of put whatever I want, maybe some more structured stuff, another slot. That's coming, TM. They are starting that basically right after DrupalCon. I mean, they've already done some prototyping and stuff, but they'll start in earnest in April. Yeah, a lot of stuff there. And how to try out Experience Builder with a design system there, the demo design system to play with for now. There's a XP demo repo where it has a few steps. It's only like five commands, command line commands to run that. And so the other way is we've been doing the demo design system. You can use vanilla Drupal. If you use the vanilla Drupal, the XP demo one, it actually it has some extra niceties on top. So it actually hides like all of the components that aren't the demo design system. If you use vanilla Drupal, you'll actually get all of those components along with some test ones from Experience Builder itself. So there'll be some extra ones in there. So it's a different way to test things, a little different. And then we've been working with the Drupal Forge team to have, so the first two options are all installing it on your local machine. So we're mostly developers in the house, so I think that's fine. The third option I've been pushing for is trying to get it for other people who are not developers to be able to just click something, the one-click demo, and it spins up, and it's in the cloud. And they can go and play with it. So they have something that works. It's just a matter of Experience Builder is a little resource heavy. It's a little more expensive. It's a little bigger. So it's a little, just costs more in order to have those demos up. So we're trying to figure out how to make that so Drupal Forge team, which is a nonprofit, is not incurring a lot of cost as someone keeps spinning up a bunch of Experience Builder demos. And I don't know who, this one was announced in Lori's Experience Builder talk, so not everyone. Who was at Lori's talk? Oh, just a handful of people. So there's the Starshot migration. I put mega because there's like so many things to migrate. I don't know. I added that in there. Initiative where the whole point of it is to figure out how are we migrating stuff into Experience Builder, into Drupal CMS in general, right? There's all these new content types. Where are we coming from? Paragraphs, layout builder, I don't know, this, that, and the other. We're also working with Jamie's team, the AI team, in order to figure out, okay, well, what kind of migration tools? They've already done a lot of work, but a lot of prototyping, right? There's a lot of prototype code available, and what can we use to, what tools would be most useful for people? So if you want to help or you have ideas of what you want to be able to use for migration, then let me know. And yeah, join us tomorrow for Contribution Day. There's a lot of channels. Haven't quite set up the migration channels yet. There's the AI migration stuff, and then there's the more general. We're not sure if we're doing one channel or two. And then the default design system, they're not quite, I don't think they're quite ready for general contribution yet. But yeah. With that, I think we're out of time, pretty sure, yeah. So feel free to come up afterwards. I mean, I'm happy to stay, but if anyone has any questions, but we'll just do thanks, everybody. All right, let me see here.
Is the civic theme
Yeah.
gonna be ready, or is it ready for Drupal CMS and Experience Builder and so forth?
So that's a very good question. So is Civic Theme ready for Drupal CMS just yet? They're literally working on all the SDCs right now. They started on the 17th. I don't even know what day it is right now, but so hoping to be ready in the next few weeks or whatever, or at least have all the SDCs ready, and then it's a matter of testing with Experience Builder, because just because you have the SDCs doesn't mean it works seamlessly with Experience Builder. There's some process there. Yeah.
But could I go get Drupal CMS and then like install Civic theme right now?
I don't think it works on Drupal 11. It does on Drupal 11, but with Drupal CMS, they kind of have their own content types, and they have some of their own decisions they've made. So my guess is it probably wouldn't work. It wouldn't be just right out of the box. So if you want to use Civic theme, yeah, you could go and play with it with Drupal 11 right now.
All right, thank you.
Okay, cool.
I'm curious how, like, with Civic theme, which is like how you're tying in this like storybook, which should be like a platform agnostic thing, into kind of what Drupal is expecting for SDC, like formatting.
Yeah, so the question, and I'm just it's still recording, so why not? So the question is how, if you're trying to go from an agnostic sort of development environment, in case like Storybook, or maybe you're building on GitHub or something, agnostic components, and then you're going to pull it into SDC, how does that glue work? It's an excellent question. I do know that our team has built some AI, some simple AI scripts in order to do some conversion between that, so that they can just run that and then create the SDCs, because there's basically just some extra information like the metadata file, and run that, and then it will make that part of it. And then there's some build tools that go and make sure it's in the right spot. And yeah, so there is a little extra work if you want something that's a bit more agnostic, but then also is supporting Drupal, but it's doable. Yeah, cool. All right, any other questions?
Is there a recommendation for, like, so I'm doing a front-end theme right now, and I'm using SDC in preparation to having those components to be ready, like when Experience Builder is. But I've run into a lot of issues with being able to use any prompt type other than string. Because in my templates, even though it's like a Boolean field in Drupal, by the time it gets to the template, it's a string. So if I put the prompt type as Boolean in the component, it complains because Drupal's actually outputting and passing a string when I'm sending it. So
how are you, okay, so the question is making some SDCs to get jumping on there and making it ready, getting ready for Experience Builder, but there's some typing issues where it's like, if it's a Boolean as the prop, but you're entering it into Drupal, it's thinking it's a string and not really passing the right type down, and you're
like
getting errors and stuff.
Once it's already kind of gotten rendered at that point.
Okay.
By the templating engine.
So where is the content getting, where are you typing in the actual data? In a node. Oh, so you're passing from a node into the SDC, and it's basically the theme layer, or in Twig, where you're trying to pass it into the SDC at that point, and it's just like, that's not a Boolean. Okay. I'm not really a front-end person, so I don't know, cast it, I don't know. Yeah, that's my gut reaction for now if you're running into bugs. Yeah, check the issue queue, I guess, if that's a bug and should be supported. I mean, it really is, if it's coming as a string from Drupal, it is a string, right? So I don't see how you don't get it, casting it seems like to be the only thing. Now, once you're an Experience Builder, it knows it's a Boolean, it's a this and that, so it could be smarter about it. But I think for now, you're going to probably have to hack around the problem. That's my guess. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
My question's related but broader. If you're about to roll out like a design system that they want to be based in the SDC concept, is there any sense of like what sort of existing ways to do the layout is going to kind of be the least pain when it comes to move to Experience Builder later, if that is our long-term plan?
Okay, I think I understand the question because it's been a common question. Like, okay, Experience Builder's not ready yet.
Yep.
I'm still making my design system. I still need to lay it out now in Drupal. So how can I get to Experience Builder with the least amount of pain, the least amount of sunk costs? Yeah. Yes, excellent question, which goes to the migration, back to that. That is one of the things we're trying to make sure we will provide ways for you to pull in that information, migrate in, or even potentially use, if you happen to be using paragraphs, like even pulling those in maybe directly. But yeah, having those tools available is actually one of the main objectives of the migration initiative. Yeah, so basically the idea is use the best of breed tools now that makes sure, so if you stick with Layout Builder and paragraphs, you're probably pretty safe because there's probably going to be an upgrade path for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there something that you shouldn't use?
Oh, I don't know. Display Suite? I don't know. I haven't when did I use that? Drupal 7 or something? Panels? Yeah, we're probably not going to support panels, I don't think. Okay, yeah, no problem. All right, more questions? Questions? Yeah.
How granular are their permissions for changing the slots or things like that? It sounded like at one point you said something about a designer could build a container that had things set a certain way, and somebody else could reuse that and possibly change the content in it.
Yeah. Yeah, so, yeah, and if I got my local up, which I might try too in a sec, let me see if I can find that part of the video. But basically, and it's all sped up, so, you know, of course it's going to be difficult for you to see what's going on. Let me see if I can get to the right spot. Okay, yeah, right there. So so here, I mean, probably was a bad example because I ended up putting like the header and footer as sections, which you wouldn't normally do. But a better example would be maybe when I made, let's see, or like maybe this one. Maybe I like that sort of styling. Maybe I actually want something that looks like this, and then just that way all they have to do is just change the text, change the button, and they're good to go, right? It's just maybe they want to change the background color, but otherwise it's, you know, pretty good. So you can just right-click on that, and then you can save it as a section. So that's what I did. If we go somewhere here, see, I right-clicked. I said you give it a name, and then it moves it up into the section area. Yeah. So I had already made one section, and you know, you can make as many as you want. I'm guessing at some point we'll be able to organize those as well. But and also we'll be able, something I guess I'm not sure I didn't mention it, is we'll be able to organize the components at some point. So it's not just like you have 50 components, maybe you have a few cards and you can lump them together and that kind of thing, which will be nice in the UI. So that's one way of like someone more advanced could make something cool and then save it, and then someone could just drag it over and use it as is and change a few things. Or like that more complicated one I put together, which was this cool stuff thing, right? There was a lot there. It might be a bit overwhelming for some editors to be able to do that, but if you're like, oh, I want to have a lot of pages have this sort of structure, but they can just go and change the text and maybe the icons or something and the testimonial, then you could save that whole thing as it's called a section now. It will be called something, maybe not a section, later. So then, yeah, they would just drag it over just like any other component. Yeah, question?
Is there any best practice on things that might have varied? So let's say we had a slider, but most slider sort of has a stack effect where the twig has to be styled a certain way or formatted a certain way, but the same slider STC needs to have a totally different twig template for another.
Yeah, that's
so
it.
we're using props to change maybe
Mm-hmm.
style, but the twig has to be very different.
Yeah. So the question is, can you do variants of your components that might have, maybe different twig files or just quite different, and, makes more sense to have a variant who's got some of the same information, but, variations. And I do know that there is a issue for SDC variants that they're working on right now. So I don't think you can do it right now because I know there is an issue and I know they're working on it. So my guess is maybe there's a merge request. I haven't looked at that in a while, but coming soon, TM again. Yeah.
The original module support something like that?
Probably, but not everything. I don't think everything from the module made it over. I'm not sure. I'd have to ask Pierre. So for those that are interested, it seems like a lot of people are interested in components. There is a components channel, and these are excellent questions. If I space out and don't get back to you, Pierre is very responsive. He's in France, but I don't know if he sleeps because he's just like, he's on it. Him and some other people on his team, they're, very responsive in that channel. So any kind of just general SDC or component-related questions, highly recommend you join that channel as well. I probably should have added it to the list there. Super valuable. And then he's the one that heads up the UI patterns and UI suite. So they have a whole bunch of things. Like SDC was actually born out of the UI suite sort of stuff that they were doing. They pulled a good chunk of it into core, and then more recently UI icons got pulled into core, which was something that was born out of that initiative as well. And their goal is to try to keep making these, great things so that they can continue to get pulled into core and reused. Like styles, skins, I don't know if those are two different things, but they have some other sub-modules that they use, sub-projects and stuff. Yeah, check them out. Some more questions. All right, go for it.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of static content being loaded in via SDCs, and I see there's some blocks integrations too. Was there any rumblings about maybe extending the conditions API to also sort of break out of blocks and also apply to single directory components?
I'm not sure I totally follow the question.
So when you add a block to Experience Builder,
Yeah.
you need to go in and say, show this block only on these pages.
Oh, like the block layout stuff? Yeah. Like the, okay, visibility conditions and all that stuff. Yeah. So they were talking about that, I believe, yesterday, that at some point they will try, it's not an easy problem to solve actually from a UX perspective, maybe from a technical perspective as well, but it is on the roadmap. I don't think it's like close on the roadmap just because it is a pretty challenging thing. So at the moment, you can still use the block, layout and position stuff globally and do all that conditions. How that gets in is still, needs some work and some more thought. But excellent question. Yeah.
In SDC, you can have a prop that is an object. Can that object contain other props?
Yes, I think I follow. So the question is, you can have a prop in an SDC, which is an object. Does that object have other props? And yes, in the sense that there was the image one, so there was a little snippet there where you could have an image, right? That image itself has, that one's a little different because you have to use the media browser to choose that, so it's a little less obvious. What?
To give a use case, I can imagine a scenario where we have some components that have tons of props, 100.
Oh dear God, please no.
Could we have like a collapsible region where we're hiding most of those?
Oh, okay. Interesting. Okay, so UX nightmare. You have 100 props you have to deal with. How do you show and hide the things that are most relevant to the user? I've done this sort of stuff with paragraphs, right? You do the toggle, and then it only shows the stuff that's relevant, and you have like the paragraph to end all paragraphs that you can slice and dice and be your one component to rule them all. Yeah, been there, done that. So what you can do, so I know that we do something only with 4, well, in this case it's slots, but you're talking about props. So that's interesting. Not sure. Sounds like a good follow-up question. I know if you had some number of slots that you wanted to optionally show, we do that with the columns component, where it defaults to 1 and has a little drop down, and you only see 1. And then if you choose 4, then it shows 4 slots, and that's just done with some CSS and stuff, you know. For the front enders, you probably be like, oh yeah, I know, I could do that. But yeah, I don't know about how organizing the props in a good way. I mean, I think in general, there may be some, like, maybe there's some advanced props that you might want to only, you know, at least close only for, like, you know, stay away from here, there be dragons sort of area. There's been talk about that, yeah.
So the form on the side is auto-generated, and that's
Yep.
That's like Experience Builder based on data that's coming out of SDC.
Correct.
So could some Experience Builder isms make it back into SDC so that we can maybe inject things like field sets, empty rows?
So for the form styling
help
itself.
checks for the user.
Right. Okay. So the question is more like, okay, we've done forms before, and we have these little things that we use, field sets and little help text and things like that. And right now, the only thing that we get on that right sidebar in Experience Builder is basically like, here's a boring form with just the props that you provided, no little niceties, no little help text. It doesn't even show that there's descriptions in the STCs, but they're nowhere to be found, right? So obviously at some point maybe there's a tooltip or something. I'm not sure if that's on the roadmap or where that's on the roadmap. I know that we did have some discussions about, oh, it'd be nice maybe to have, you know, a field set to collapse maybe some advanced things, or like, oh, these are styling things versus these are like data that we're showing, or yeah, I'm not even sure if there's an issue for that, but yeah, it's a good one. We definitely, you know, it's work in progress. All right, another question, yeah.
I think you mentioned this when you were talking, but is it in the roadmap that you will enable dynamic content in the fields for the?
Yeah, so the question is it in the roadmap to be able to map dynamic content to the props that you're seeing in the UI? Yeah, so that is something that is happening or will be happening in the next few months for sure, because yeah, you're going to want to be able to tie it to the data that's in what you're seeing, or maybe some global data, yeah, just like you would expect.
Some other content type that you have in the site, and you want to do, I don't know, related views.
Yeah, that's a pretty common example, is having the related content, and you want to be able to, you know, maybe select a specific node ID, or, you know, a specific node, and then say, oh, I'm going to pull this from the title of the node and this from the, you know, summary or something like that. Yeah, definitely coming hopefully by Vienna, DrupalCon Vienna. All right, any other questions? Lively crowd, awesome, go for it.
I guess if you had, like, I guess the question is there talk of maybe allowing within Experience Builder to convert a component between types? Like if you have a heading, or if you have a paragraph you want to convert it to a heading component, rather than recreate it.
So if you have a paragraph component and you want to convert it to a heading component,
Without having to redo
with
it all over again.
no, that's such a very paragraphs-based question, because that's definitely something that. So the question is, if you have a component and you wanted to basically convert it to another component without having to like copy paste, yeah, that's like.
Because the other CMS that I won't name has the ability to convert blocks to different block types. So that's where I'm kind of going with that.
Okay, so there's another tool out there in the world, not Drupal, that lets you convert between the two. That is an interesting. Maybe that could be a little sub thing in the migration initiative. You know, you're kind of moving data around. I don't know. I like the idea, because especially if you had kind of a lot of stuff, and You don't want to have to, you just kind of in situ say, okay, this is now this, and it happens to have this more or less the same props. Got to have the same naming convention at least, or you'd have to have a mapping thing and say, oh, map this, this, and this. That UI might be a little interesting, but yeah, it's an interesting idea.
With the mapping, every block you have to write custom code to map from the source type to the destination type.
Yeah. Hey, Batty. Hey, oh, I see what's going on. I see what's going on. You're coming to me. All right, I think I've had a ton of amazing questions. I think officially we need to wrap up because I'm getting summoned. But thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's what's going on. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right.